Thank you for joining us for this episode of US Law Live. This podcast is brought to you by US Law's official corporate partners, SEA, American Legal Records, Arcadia Settlements Group, Immersion Legal Jury Consultants, Marshall Investigative Group, and MDD Forensic Accountants. We very much appreciate your support and partnership.
I am Jessica Dark. I am one of the US Law Live podcasts hosts with the US Law member firm Pierce Couch in Oklahoma. Today I am joined by my co-host, Miss Pam Halford of the Carr Allison firm there in Dothan, Alabama. Hi, Pam. How are you?
Hi, Jessica. Good to be with you today.
Well, Pam, I'm excited. We have a very special guest named Caryn Boisen. She is in the Larson King firm in Minnesota and North Dakota. Welcome to the podcast, Caryn. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks, Jessica and Pam, for having me. I'm doing well.
We are glad to have you. US Law has started this podcast as kind of a fun way to stay in touch and network, even when we're not at a US Law event. So this is just a very lighthearted discussion. We want to talk to you and hear about you and your practice, kind of what goes on in your world. And we'll do a little bit of introduction discussion, and then if you've brought a legal topic to discuss, we'd love to hear what is going on, and we'll follow that up with a non-legal topic. So let's get started. Caryn, tell us about yourself and about what you do.
All right, thanks. So I have been an attorney with Larson King for nearly 20 years. It'll be 20 years in July. My primary area of practice is construction law. Larson King has been around for about 25 years. It was actually formed by kind of two groups of lawyers from different law firms who came together to start a new law firm. We've always had a pretty unique culture. We're a mid-sized firm. We pride ourselves on being flexible and nimble, both in how we staff cases and using, flexible arrangements for fees with our clients. Since so many of our partners came to Larson King from different firms, we brought with us kind of the best ideas, the things we liked best from our other firms, but maybe not some of the things that we didn't think were working out. So like I said, my primary area of practice is construction. Some of the other practice areas that we have at Larson King are business litigation, employment, financial services. We do immigration work for a lot of our employer clients. Insurance and reinsurance, which for those who don't know is insurance for insurance companies. We do different types of professional liability, including accounting malpractice, legal malpractice, medical malpractice. We do products liability defense, transportation, which mostly involves trucking accidents. And so yeah, kind of a big variety. My practice, like I said, is primarily construction law. I do some products liability defense as well. Most of my clients are general contractors and subcontractors in the commercial construction area. I have represented some project owners and developers as well. And I've also worked on some like multi-family unit projects, like apartment buildings or condominium buildings, but mostly I represent contractors who work on commercial projects.
That's awesome, Caryn. So sometimes I think it's interesting you said that y'all have sort of learned what works, but maybe more importantly, what doesn't work with bringing people in from different firms and sort of a conglomeration of firms. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's sort of working from a firm culture standpoint.
Well, I think one thing that makes us really unique is Larson King's really unstructured. We don't have formal practice groups. And because of that, for example, when we hire new associates, we don't assign our associates to work for, a particular practice group or a particular partner. We really let those relationships develop organically. And I think that that has a couple benefits. One, then you're working with people who, that you have good working style with, and that and the associates kind of have some say in where their practice goes and some direction with how they want their career path to go. And so, certainly if there's a, big case or a huge document review and it's all hands on deck, yes, associates are expected to pitch in, but for the most part, they can really chart their own course. And I think that's a pretty unique and cool way to run a firm.
I think that's really a helpful benefit. Tell us, how many lawyers are at Larson King?
I should know the exact number. I don't know the exact number, but it's approximately 35.
Okay, so my firm's about the same size. We're about 40. We do have 2 offices, but in Oklahoma City, we have mostly, I'd say 35 to 38 at any given time. And I think that kind of setup or lack of setup is actually really helpful when interviewing new associates. One of the first questions is, what am I going to get to do? Am I going to get to learn all different kinds, or am I going to kind of be, I don't want to say pigeonholed, because I think that has a negative connotation and I don't mean it to, but, targeted to one area. And I also, I've been at Pierce Couch since I was an intern, a law student. And so those first couple of years were just complete, learning everything, seeing everything. And then over the years, kind of gradually narrowing to what am I good at? What do I like? So I think that's fabulous. Caryn, were you always destined to be a lawyer? Did you know that was your goal, or was it kind of spontaneous?
I thought I did ever since kind of high school age. It was in my mindset. But when I actually went to law school, I thought I was going to be a criminal defense lawyer. I was a criminal justice undergrad major. And so I thought that would be the path that I was going down. And then my first summer of law school, I worked for the Federal Public Defender's Office as an intern for the summer. And while the work is very rewarding, it's also very hard and very depressing. And so I kind of quickly changed courses and then decided, nope, I think I'm going to do civil litigation instead.
Isn't that funny? That's what I thought too, Caryn. I always wanted to be a lawyer, but thought I didn't want to do anything else if it wasn't, being Matlock and doing some sort of criminal litigation. And I clerked in it in Northern Michigan, of all places, but clerked in criminal defense, and was like, whoa, this is not at all what I anticipated. And then similarly ended up in civil defense, and I haven't looked back. Have you?
No, I have not. And I will say, I really admire people who work in the criminal justice system, because it's hard, and it doesn't matter what side you're on. It's a hard place to be. And so the people who have dedicated their career to that, I hold in the utmost of respect, because it's tough.
Yeah, I think obviously civil litigation has its own stressors, anxiety, but there's usually some, maybe less so with construction, maybe not. I would say there's usually some sad part of it, but at the end of the day, it's mostly about money. And when you're talking about criminal cases and people's lives or liberty, I feel like that just has so much added layers that my anxiety cannot handle.
Yeah, I think you're right. Certainly, I think when you're representing businesses, there's more emotion in it than someone from the outside would realize. When I look at my contractor clients, they really take on board the project. It's such a point of pride for them to have a project that goes well, that they have good relationships, with the owners that they work for. A lot of them, they, end up having repeat business with. And so it used to surprise me a little bit how sort of emotionally vested these folks are, but it makes sense, right? They're working in the construction field because they believe in building great projects and helping build infrastructure and doing all those good things. And so they definitely care a lot about it, which is rewarding, right? If you look from the outside and you think about a contractor building a hotel or a building for a hospital or something like that, it makes it fun when they care so much about it.
We always like to ask our folks, Caryn, kind of what's going on in your world, whether it's in your practice or otherwise, involvement with US law, anything like that you'd like for the people who are listening to this.
Well, I have one word: tariffs. and I'm not going to turn this into a political discussion by any means. I'm not going to pass judgment on whether tariffs are a good thing or a bad thing. But so I actually do a lot of transactional work and client counseling, in addition to, disputes about construction projects. So, I help clients with contract drafting and negotiation, and like training for their project management team on contract terms and mechanics liens and things like that. And right now, I feel like I'm subsumed by discussions about tariffs that I talk about it every day. And it, the reason is because, as probably everyone has heard at this point, at least currently at the time that we're recording this, there have been new tariffs imposed on Mexico and Canada and China. That could change any day, but that's the way it is now. And the construction industry uses a lot of imported materials and equipment. Like 70% of the wood products that are imported into the US come from Canada. Mexico has a really thriving electronics manufacturing industry, and a lot of those electronic pieces of equipment get imported into the US. China is a huge manufacturer of steel, cement, glass, roofing materials, other construction materials. And so right now it's so unclear, number one, if the tariffs stay in place, how that will affect prices of all these goods that are being incorporated into construction projects. But the last time tariffs were imposed, which was in 2018, on both steel and aluminum imports, there was a very fast, sharp increase in the cost of those materials. And so right now, everyone in the construction industry is just trying to figure out, like, how do you mitigate the risk of this? Who bears the risk? And the problem is, you've got projects underway where the contract was signed months ago, and there's nothing in the contract to anticipate material prices increasing. And if they do, how do you address that? So that it's just an issue that is really the top of everybody's mind. And in like new contracts, in the contracts that I'm helping clients negotiate now, my contractor clients obviously want to put provisions in there that make it clear that if there are material increases in the cost of the various construction materials, that they will get compensated for it, and that there'll be some sort of way for them to mitigate that risk of the increased cost. So that's a huge, huge issue right now.
Imagine that you have a friend, maybe she's a podcast host, maybe she's not, but she is about to start building a residential home, but the contract has not been inked yet. Caryn, what should she do to make sure she's protected? You can pretend she's a lawyer, you don't have to, but what kind of legal advice would you give to someone about to start the home building process?
Jessica, this feels oddly personal.
Oh, no. This was just a question from the audience.
Well, I'm not in a position to give legal advice, but what I would say is that, it's just important to, make sure that the provisions are pretty ironclad in terms of, from an owner's perspective. You don't want to bear the risk that the cost of your new house is going to go through the roof because the roofing materials are costing so much now, they're being imported. And so I think from an owner's side, making it clear that the price is the price, and that, there will be no changes, and that the contractor has, included everything that is reasonably anticipated. Mm-hmm. Because now that we're in the situation we are in, price increases are reasonably anticipated now. That is a likely result. Maybe not, but it's a likely result. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. I'll let that person know.
Hey, Caryn, the people who are listening can't see this, but I can, so I have to ask. Your pothos back behind you is insane.
You can't, and actually you can't even see half of it. It is so big. Here, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah, spin us around. How long have you had this guy?
Several years, and I have another one right there
Wow.
down to the floor. Yeah.
Green thumb. Do you have plants at home as well?
I do, but for some reason, these two plants love it in my office. I don't know why they love it so much, but they do.
Well, you have a nice bright office there that we can see. Are all of y'all located right there in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, so our office is in downtown St. Paul. Most of the law firms in town are actually located in downtown Minneapolis.
Mhm.
And just in case people aren't familiar with the geography here, the two downtowns are about 10 miles apart. The city limits of St. Paul and Minneapolis butt up against each other, but the downtowns are about 10 miles apart. Downtown Minneapolis is a lot bigger and a lot more buildings than St. Paul. I like to affectionately call St. Paul Sleepy St. Paul, but that's where our office is. And actually, a lot of people don't know this either, but the Twin Cities are on the extreme eastern side of Minnesota. And so the easternmost suburbs are actually in Wisconsin. And I live in Wisconsin because it's, just over the border, about 2 miles over the border. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Were you born and raised in that area, or are you a transplant?
I was born and raised in the suburbs of St. Paul, but in Minnesota. I didn't move to the Wisconsin suburbs until about 15 years ago. But yeah, so born and raised in Minnesota. I did move away for about 5 years and then came back. And I will have to say that even though I do live in Wisconsin now, I am a diehard Minnesota sports fan, especially the Minnesota Vikings. My husband and I have had season tickets for like 15 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
We should have had Mike Judy on so he could talk about the, perils living in Kansas City on both sides of the state line. And I don't know, but they also have an NFL team that he's pretty obsessed with.
I'm sure.
Are you talking about Taylor Swift's boyfriend's team? Yes. Is that the one?
That's the one. Caryn, I was looking on your website because I feel like I can always learn a lot about our lawyers. And what stood out to me was you are an avid traveler, having been to 5 continents. Which ones are you missing, and which one are you going to next?
I'm missing Australia and Antarctica. But I'm actually I have a couple trips planned this year to other continents. I'm going to England next month. My husband grew up in England and lived there till he was in his early 30s. And so we still have a lot of family and friends there. And my mother-in-law's turning 80. So we're going to go and spend her 80th birthday with her in England, which will be fun.
Well,
and then later this year, we're going to Argentina, which I'm very excited about.
Do you have Antarctica in your sights?
I don't know. I would like to. My sister is going to Antarctica next year. And so I'm excited to hear what her experience will be.
A sorority sister of mine just got back from a cruise. And she said it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's what my sister and brother-in-law are doing too. They're doing a cruise.
Really?
I'm excited to hear about it. Yeah.
So does your husband have that lovely British accent that everybody loves?
It's toned down quite a bit because we moved back 20 years ago. And so just it's a little bit, everyone in England makes a little bit fun of him, saying that he has an American twang. Now he doesn't. He still has an English accent, but it's just not as thick as it was when we met. But honestly, I don't hear it. I don't, like, it doesn't register that he has an accent in my brain because I've been with him for so many years that it just doesn't even register anymore, which is kind of strange.
Well, I need to meet him at something and I'll let you know if he has one or not. I just love to hear them talk. It's my most favorite thing.
The only time I notice his accent anymore is if he leaves me a voicemail. Then I can hear it. But when we're just talking day to day, it doesn't register. And actually, my sister says the same thing, that since she's known him now for so long, she doesn't even really register that he has an English accent.
What is your favorite place that you have traveled to? Like if you had to go back, you had one place that you could go back to again and again and again, where would it be?
I think maybe Argentina, actually. So we went for our honeymoon 20 years ago. And so we're very excited to go back. And it's just a great place. And there's so much to see and do. Buenos Aires reminds me of Paris, but just a Spanish speaking Paris. It's similar architecture, just similar like cafe culture. And then there's so much to see in terms of outdoor adventures. They have these beautiful, huge waterfalls in the north that right on the border of Brazil, that are just gorgeous. They, rival Niagara and other waterfalls for sure. And then there's glaciers in the south in Patagonia. There's places you can go visit penguin colonies, and there's a whole wine region where you can tour wineries and vineyards, and it's just a really cool place. People are very nice. The food is great. Best steak I've ever had in my life by far.
Wow. Caryn, I think we have exhausted our time with you, but we appreciate you being on the podcast today. Is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with?
I don't think so. It's been great though. Thank you for having me.
Good. We loved having you.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to US Law Live. Stay tuned for more great conversations on US Law Live, the podcast. To learn more about US Law Network, visit uslaw.org. Thank you, Caryn.
Thank you.